Hello, I'm John from Broadsheet, and you're very welcome to Tomorrow Tonight. We're joined by public affairs consultant, uh, political commentator, and broadsheet columnist, Derek Mooney. Good evening, Derek.
Hello, John. How are you going? Are you well?
Very well. Your column is in today's on the site today concerning Neil Martin once
Yep.
again, and
Yeah.
he's learned the mistakes from his gaffe last week about
Well,
the
hope so.
North.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, but I think maybe, maybe it's more in hope than in as a definite prediction. But I think there are some signals that he might have. All right, yeah.
Okay, and that is, I'll just share the screen. You can see that now, Derek, can you?
Yep.
Hang on 1 second. Okay. And there's Derek's column. Martin may be learning the mistakes of, or the learning lessons of last week's mistakes. There's a bit of code here. I love this, Derek. It may not be much of a shift, but as they say in Cork, a shift is still a shift.
Yeah, that has to be said with the accent, which I'm not going to dare attempt.
No, I'm not. With the Cork mother, I'm not.
No. The people who know what that means know what that means.
No. I'll go back to that. But will we go to the
Yep. No, go look at the papers
if we can, yeah. Come and zoom, and we go to the Examiner, which is always one of the first.
Yeah.
Tony Holland rebuts Michael O'Leary, presumably.
Yeah, it is indeed Ryanair. Again, which is, look, you can't blame O'Leary for trying, which is basically saying, look, we'll all be taking holidays over the summer. We'll all be able to get back on the planes and fly all over the place. I really think, even with the best will in the world, I think that's unlikely. But I mean, Tony Holland was kind of clutching his pearls, kind of saying, well, no, this is dreadful for saying this. Look, there will be some flights, there will be people able to move around. It depends how many are vaccinated, it depends where they're going to. I think kind of the summer is probably a bit optimistic. But I would have thought by the end of the year. But I actually think, just in terms of, we're not going to go back flying as often as we did before. I think a lot of the things that we did in the past will have to be reassessed. But there will be some. I think the issue is, what does the new normal look like? It's not going to look like the old normal. And it's maybe going to be a hybrid normal for a couple of months. So if you've got another 6 months of this, 9 months of this into next year, who knows? Again, which is like the tourist industry is going to be the first thing that gets a massive hit. And while I know that the Greek islands all around across Europe, places that are highly dependent on tourists, are going to be screaming at trying to get people in, and they're going to be turning somersaults to get people in. And realistically, I think a lot of people are not going to be in the mood to do that. Some will, younger people will. Look, again, I think we said this week in, week out, this is really, I would not want to be a 17 or 18-year-old.
No. O'Leary,
this lockdown.
No. Ryanair have lost to $1 billion, apparently, in the...
Yeah, but I think their share price, I saw something that they were, I think they were expecting a bit of a share price dip, and actually just it stabilized. I mean, I'm not saying they can take it, nobody can take a loss of $1 billion too handy. But I think they know a way back out of it. And again, look, the airline industry has been an exceptionally volatile industry for a long number of years. And the one group of people we know who can get through this is probably Ryanair, because they will be creative in their approach, they'll be creative in their marketing. So look, it's not easy. And again, which is like people said, oh, it is dreadful that Michael O'Leary's doing this. Yeah, Michael O'Leary does tend to shoot his mouth off. But at the end of the day, there's still people behind that. There are still, in terms of jobs, etc., there are still people working in the airline industry. There are people highly dependent on the tourist industry. And there are people whose livelihoods will depend on this ultimately. And we're talking about a curtailment of both, but that means people lose their jobs. And that's not easy. It's not pleasant.
Plan agreed for reopening of special schools. That was after there was a court decision this morning, was there?
Well, no, there's been an ongoing negotiation, etc. Now, I think it's just the special schools, and even then, it's coming in with reduced hours and additional rules, etc. Look, this is, again, it's a HR issue in a large measure, which was the need for the government to instill confidence in the Forza, the various teaching unions, that a return to some kind of teaching was going to be safe. This, like we saw, was it 2 or 3 weeks? 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, it looked as if there was a major standoff. That appears to have been, that impasse seems to have gone through.
But was it seen as unconstitutional today or something like that?
That I have to say is a new one on me. I didn't actually cop that now at all. Yeah.
That was Olga actually wrote me an email about it concerning a case. I'll come back to it. Don't worry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah.
A little bit confused here. Sorry. Yeah. The Data Protection Commissioner is written to the Mother and Baby Homes Commission of Investigation over the
That's right. I mean, these recordings, again, this seems to have been an absolute quagmire. I mean, okay, data protection is a new issue. It's not a new issue. It's been knocking around for a long, long time. A lot of people still seem to be trying to come to terms with GDPR, although that's been kind of around for a couple of years, for 3 to 4 years. But this one, like the original chaos we saw last June and July was over data protection, over complete misreading, it seems, by the department on what data protection meant. And one thing that a data protection regulation gives you is you're entitled to see your own data.
Yeah.
You're entitled to see the data that the state holds on you. And there seems to be a complete misreading of that, and basically saying, well, look, at data also has to be used for the purpose for which it was given.
Yeah.
But the data is still owned by the personal data is still owned by the individual. So this one just seems to be an extraordinary nightmare. And it seems to be that the commission, everyone seems to be going on a different interpretation or definition of what the actual rules meant.
Yeah. Many sides are like, the government will use the data protection and then they'll feign ignorance about it on other matters. It's sort of.
Well, it is becoming kind of what does it say? Like uses a big granny's nightshirt that covers everything. But it's there is an element of that. But at the end of the day, the principles set out in the data protection regulation, as set out in Europe, are quite clear, and that is that where possible, the personal data belongs to the individual, that they have access to it. They're entitled to know what data that people store or get on them. And if there's not a need to keep that data, the data, so they have a right to be forgotten, a right, to have this data that's not needed to be destroyed. So the right lies with the individual. And I just think there seems to be a misreading of that. But just again, this has been, look, this whole Mother and Baby Home Commission, even in terms of the language used, the terminology, there seems to be having an extraordinary insensitivity on this from start to finish, not least the manner in which the report was released.
Yeah.
None of this, nobody's coming out of this with glory. But I have to say, like, I would have many criticisms of the Data Protection Commissioner, or the Commission as it's now, it's kind of the wider body than just that Commissioner. But I think they are actually really getting to grips on this and have been prepared on several occasions to take the state to task. And I think the DPC has on many occasions shown that they're prepared to go to government departments and agencies and say, no, that's not what's there.
Yeah.
You're going to pony up. So
they've been very strong. Sorry, just get back to this. This dog is called Perry, and the mask is not for COVID, but it's an oxygen mask for.
For the doggies. Yeah, I think that's on the front page of the Echo as well.
It is, yeah. Just wanted to, in case anybody was worried that.
No, I don't think that.
Our pets are needs. 70,000 on waiting list again. The unintended or the consequences of the pandemic in terms of appointments, cancer appointments.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, and I think kind of various patients groups, etc., are doing this. And look, there is a natural. I mean, particularly over the last couple of weeks, when people have been hearing anecdotal stories or handing things about people catching, and there have been cases of people catching COVID while in hospital. I think that's just scaring people, and particularly when people hear that there's an ICU, that ICU is packed, and that acute beds are packed. I think people are saying, "Listen, I don't want to go near that hospital."
Yeah,
that's an understandable thing, but it is something that really is building up on pressure on other parts of the health service.
Yeah,
and again, look, this is the same health service trying to cover the whole all these different issues, and again, there's just an extraordinary amount of pressure on quite a large number of people, but there are people who are working flat out.
Have you medical appointments that you've delayed, or any of that? I mean, do you have?
No, show me a picture of health.
Yeah, I know.
Absolute picture of health.
I know, but just on like.
No, in fairness, no. I'm probably like every other 50-something male. don't go near the doctor as many times as I should. I tend to kind of say, oh, look, that'll be grand. I'll take two aspirin, or I'll take a couple of ibuprofen, and I'll be fine. So I'm no example to anyone.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of, I've nothing that kind of would drag me to a hospital or would force me to a hospital.
Yeah.
And I have a huge reluctance to go into a hospital. Will do anything not to go to the doctor and not go to the hospital. So I'm not exactly a poster boy for any of this.
Huge drop in cargo between UK and Ireland, 50%. I heard this morning.
Yeah, well, look, that's again, which is the land bridge is gone, and I think that I can't remember what the numbers were, but there was a fourfold increase. I saw at one point reported for Rosslare, and then what extra is going through Dublin and through Ostend, or I can't remember the various Dunkirk. For another, and what's the other big one? There's another one to name, which will come to in Holland. No, wasn't it the big one? I'll take it again anyway. Okay. None of this is that important. But yeah, no, I think that it is. And by the way, this isn't a temporary drop. This is the way it's going to be. That there is going to be a sizable shift. And what we see, like even the thing with Amazon, etc. Setting up a fulfillment center here and kind of doing stuff, a lot of things. Even just something, I was also trying to order something there the other day, and I realized, hang a second, it's come from the UK, and I said, I'll bugger that now, I'm not ordering it. So like I think a lot of these things are going to have to. And by the way, for companies like maybe like a lot of the big multiples who are based here, Tesco's, Boots, etc., are going to have to look and see how they kind of warehouse stuff in Ireland. They can't just be shipping stuff backwards and forwards from head office, including their headquarters operations.
Yeah,
they need to look at.
But, this is the Irish World, which is Bernard Purcell's newspaper. He's editor, hopefully joining us tomorrow. US Congressman Brendan F. Boyle on the profound economic case for United Ireland. He's a Democrat, is he? No.
He's a Democrat from Philadelphia. I can't remember. I think it's Philadelphia. I think his brother is on the Massachusetts state legislature. Oh. So there's Brendan, but Brendan has had a long interest and has an abiding interest. He was over last year when Nancy Pelosi was visiting Ireland. Maybe not last, the year before, I should say. Yeah. So he's some good at this. And he actually had a piece. I imagine this is something similar along the lines that he had in today's Irish Times. He had an opinion piece in the Irish Times there, which is not 1,000 miles away from what I was saying on Broadsheet this morning, which is, look, whatever the date for the referendum is, this is the time to start preparing.
Yeah, you guys want to you're not even allowed to discuss it really.
No, that's the whole. It's the exact opposite. That's exactly what he wanted. We want the discussion.
No, I mean
the lengthy discussion.
No, Micheál Martin.
Well, it's not that he doesn't want to discuss. I think Micheál Martin has become fixated and saying, look, we shouldn't be talking about a referendum. We should be talking about kind of just developing relationships on the island. That's what the Shared Islands Unit for.
Yeah.
And we should postpone all talk about referendums and postpone all talk about United Ireland because it's only scaring unionists and they're not going to come into these talks about how we make Ireland work.
Yeah.
And what's happening on the other side is, well, no, unionists turn around and say, yeah, no, you're just trying to hide this stuff. We know well that's your agenda. We know well they think we're salami slicing. But more importantly, you've had over the last 6 months, you've had Peter Robinson and now Gavin Robinson coming out and saying unionism needs to prepare for the referendum because they see the logical extension of Brexit, what's happening in Scotland, what's possibly going to happen in Wales, it's just going to bring this up the agenda. And we're better off starting to have the discussion now, having an informed discussion, and everything's on the table. I think we do have to approach this on the basis of everything's on the table. New constitution, new flags, symbols, emblems, a whole lot.
When they say that they want to start talking, they want to launch a no campaign, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. But you'll have that. I mean, there is a case for maintaining the union. There is an argument. I don't happen to agree with it, but there is an argument there.
Well, there's certainly an overwhelming economic argument if you were a citizen, if you were subject to Northern Ireland now.
It's not as overwhelming as it once would have been, but it is still there. I mean, in terms of like the Northern Ireland economy, it is still largely dependent on state inputs. It's not an economy that's. It has industries. It has a dairy and agricultural industry, which is now going to be hurt by Brexit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think if anything, the argument economically is moving towards United Ireland and towards the all-Ireland economy than it is going through the integration with the UK.
Well, if you were living in Northern Ireland now, would you? I mean, on purely fiscal terms would you want to go with the South?
Well, what you're doing, if you look at the moment, what you say is, look, in terms of the NHS, that's still a kind of is better the healthcare system than the South. Your cost of living in the North is cheaper than it is here to buy a house, to live, etc. It's cheaper than it is in Dublin.
No.
Oh, it is, and I'm not so. But what I'm saying is, they're the things that we need to start answering. We need to start arguing about.
Yeah,
we need to compare grades. But it is a matter of, by the way, what we have is not sustainable. What is the house prices? The whole thing we have in the South is not sustainable either. I mean, Dublin was creaking at the seams a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Infrastructure was barely coping. Public transport would barely cope. Housing prices were getting crazy. Rental was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of. I mean, this is a whole argument right across the board, and I think we've got to start seeing it in narrow, old-fashioned, wolf tone, ballad song type thing, and the rest of us. We need to kind of look at this in a more modern way.
In Belfast, can I ask you, in Belfast on the streets, are there homeless people the way there are in Dublin?
Yes, there are. Yeah, there, I mean, is there? Yeah, but why? I mean, there's a whole range. Are there social problems in Northern Ireland?
No. I mean, in terms of just the visuals, like we had a rolling news. The photographers went around this week. It's tense everywhere.
I wouldn't be anywhere as acute as it is in Dublin. No, that definitely isn't the case. It wouldn't be as acute in terms of homelessness, and I think you would argue that the homeless services are probably, I won't say better in Belfast. It's just a question of scale, maybe. But I think they are. That certainly it's not nearly as obvious as it is here.
Yeah, I mean, again, why would you want to be part of a country that has its capital like just a kind of half a tent city? You know, I mean, they're the optics.
Well, okay, that is a parody of what it is, rather than that. I mean, in terms of, my whole point is that you can turn around and say, listen, guys, we want you to join the way Dublin is now. We want you to join the way everything is at the moment. The whole thing has to change. And that's why this is a long-term discussion. This is a much longer discussion.
Yeah.
This is not a 2-3 year discussion. This is 5, 10, whatever years.
Yeah, forgive me, I'm being very simplistic as well. Huge shock.
It's not like you, John. It's not like you. I don't know what's got into you tonight.
O'Brien, Ireland will get it right. You argument?
No, it's just.
This is interesting. This is in the Irish world as well. Go right, bricklayer Danny Cobley came to London with the dream of life as an artist. His friend and fellow painter Brian Whelan honours his life in a new book with the hope that his work finally gets the recognition it deserves. Yeah. Interesting kind of cheeky London pub scene there.
Yeah, it is, and I think kind of it's a nice style. It's a kind of, that's, I can't. There's a proper name for the style.
Yeah.
Which won't come to. There is, which is kind of, that's naturalistic, but just kind of almost basic. But it's evocative.
No, yeah, not unlike Harry Clarke's kind of cartoons of the pub life.
Yeah.
In Ireland.
But what I can't, again, I'm dreadful on names. The Dublin guy, the Dublin artist, his son's an artist as well. Used to do pub scenes and all the rest of it, whose name won't come to me.
Oh, okay. Well, if it does, just you.
Oh yeah, look, it'll come to me. It'll be 2 days' time. It'll come to me. The synapses ain't firing that fast. Anyway.
Daily Telegraph. Boris pushes to reopen schools as cases fall. Good news, I guess.
Is actually, if you go to the very top there, the manner which they have an op-ed in there today, which I'll be interested in reading, which is William Hague on why the government is working best after Dominic Cummings.
Yeah,
that looks like an interesting piece. Number one, because Hague is a damn good writer, but number two, I'd be interested in his take. Now, I think people would not be shocked that a lot of the Tories are happy to see the back of Cummings, but I think it makes a point, which is people who are good at campaigning are not necessarily good at governing. But I'd be interested. It's a piece I'd be interested in reading. Again, which is what you see in the UK, and you see this in Northern Ireland, I think was discussed today, is that Northern Ireland has a plan now to vaccinate teachers and to put them on an early list. And over the weekend in the UK as a whole, they vaccinated nearly 1 million people. They're not far off 20 million vaccinated across the country. Maybe not 20 million, it's not that high. But I mean that they really are. Like Northern Ireland now has 250,000 people vaccinated. We have 200,000. So pro rata, they're about 2.5 times ahead of us. Now that's for a whole range of reasons. Most importantly, supply.
Okay.
But I think what in terms of Boris Johnson talking about schools went back is because they can actually talk about vaccinating people in those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
Which is a different issue here. So in case we start drawing parallels too fast.
Yeah. 80,000 total COVID tests as South African variant spreads. There's going to be door-to-door checks.
It is, yeah. I think they've done this kind of, they've been looking at, I think there was, I can't remember where, it was just outside London, I think it was somewhere where two people found with the South African variant, but they could find no linkage to them having travelled or anyone belonged to them travelled or even on their contract tracing list. So there seems to be just kind of getting out there, and I think that's become a big worry. So they think they've now gone through it on the postcode. Okay. So people in certain areas have now been tested specifically for the variant.
Yeah, okay. The Independent Global Outcry over coup in Myanmar.
Myanmar, yeah, extraordinary. I mean, again, which is Aung San Suu Kyi, who was a heroine a couple of years ago, that went into government and was found to have feet of clay, introduced some reforms, and has now gone. I've seen various kind of analysis of why the coup happened now. But I think the most interesting one was not because she just won the election and the military could claim that the election was fraud or was robbed. It's because the chief of staff is due to retire soon and just doesn't fancy going because he's had his hand in the till so long. And he decided, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to have democratic control. I'm not going to have civilian control of the defence forces. I'm taking over. Good night, Vienna.
Okay.
So I mean, anytime, so we can meet. We're blessed with our military here. When the guys say it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah. Well,
it's time to retire. They go gracefully.
She lied down with those fleas a few years ago, so she.
Well, the problem is that again, which is I think again maybe it's a return back to which is somebody who's very good in opposition and very good as a campaigner. When it came to governing, I think she was found to be quite weak and vacillating, and basically took a couple of easy routes, and the treatment of the Rohingya was terrifying.
Yeah, I mean it showed a very, very dark side to her. I mean,
I'm not too sure it showed. Well, look, none of this is bad, none of this is good. Whether it showed a dark side to her or just a weak side to her.
Yeah, well, I mean, the weakness allowed kind of a lot of evil to take place. I mean, from being such a liberal. Anyway, the London Times Sage Warren number 10 over mutant virus weeks ago. Ignored advice to close borders, etc.
It's of the South Africa. Yeah, and again, look, this discussion is repeated ad nauseum around a whole range of countries. It's just extraordinary. Okay.
What a result. British vaccines lined up until 2025. So we're fighting Brexit on the vaccine front, really.
Well, having said, you can argue the same thing about Europe, which is it's not that countries haven't bought. Europe has bought something like 2.4 billion for a population of 550 million or 520 million, whatever it is now. Post-Brexit, actually be less, I think, just under 500 million. So there's a massive surplus, but it's when it arrives, and most of it seems to be arriving into the second half of the second quarter, and that's just the issue. Actually, if you just go back up to the top of the restaurant, which is just kind of purely personal one, is that one of my favorite singers and a guy I've had the pleasure of meeting once or twice actually, and seeing live is Tony Bennett, and his family announced tonight that he has Alzheimer's, and he's had Alzheimer's for the last 4 to 5 years. Seems to be coping quite well with it. He's quite active, bizarrely, on social media, on Instagram.
Is he?
Yeah, and posting constantly of cooking this meal. He is. But he was due to appear in Dublin about 3.5 years ago, and his concert was cancelled 2 days beforehand because he had a cold or a flu. So maybe now we're starting to understand why they cancelled it. Extraordinary singer.
Yeah, he's the last of that breed.
Absolutely. And you can see there's like Sinatra stuff and all the rest of it, my memorabilia. Yeah. But extraordinary singer. One of the things that Bennett, like I've seen Bennett about 4 times live. And one thing he does is it's a standard piece. He stops the orchestra. Like he only plays travels with a kind of a 5-piece band or 4-piece band. If they stop playing, they knock off the sound and he sings a cappella. But no audio, no sound. Oh, sorry, no amplification.
Yeah.
And he just kind of says, I want to show you what great auditoriums these are and the rest of it. And he did it in the National Concert Hall. Obviously he thought the National Concert Hall had been knocking around for 200 years. Nobody wanted to break the news from it's about 20, 25 years. It used to be an exam hall. But in fairness, the acoustics in the NCH are really excellent. Yeah. And he belted out Fly Me to the Moon, the slow version. It literally was hairs in the back of your neck stuff. And he just stood at the end of the stage, at the edge of the stage, and just belted it.
Wow.
Boy, could he project that voice.
Good Lord.
There you go. Anyway, sorry about that.
I Left My Heart in San Francisco. That's his signature.
That's his big hit. It's awful song.
Oh, you hate that?
I hate it with a passion. But it is a I think Frank Sinatra said he had the best pipes in the business. Frank Sinatra
Really?
described him technically as the finest singer.
Wow, it's all about the breathing, isn't it, with those guys?
It is about breath control and it's about the ability to hold it, yeah. Bennett's case, like Sinatra, he was phrasing. His phrasing was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And while Sinatra was great between songs and could ad-lib and joke and the rest of it, Bennett was not great at that. He was his rapport with the audience was based on the music and just his personal charm. But like, I'm just trying to think of a polite way of saying it. Like I think it was Johnny Carson said about Chevy Chase that he couldn't ad-lib a fart after a baked bean dinner. I think the poor thing, the same thing about the poor Tony. He didn't have chat or small talk with the audience. Because every concert I went to, it was the same. He would introduce the a cappella bit with exactly the same phrase.
That's amazing.
Exactly the same thing. And he'd introduce everything with exactly the same. Now, there were different song lists, but every so often you'd hear the same stuff coming up.
But he was no Dean Martin, no glass in hand, and he was
no, far from it. No, actually, I saw Dean Martin live at his last London performance for my 21st birthday, which tells you an awful lot about how sad I can be. Well, I went to see Dean Martin for 21st. It was just an extraordinary. But it then turns out, I remember them recording that show. That show is, I now have the show on DVD, but it's the night I was there. That's the night they recorded in the Apollo Victoria. Extraordinary performance. And it was his last time that kind of Dean Martin at his best because his son was killed shortly afterwards. And he went downhill very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean, he was famous for kind of pretend being drunk. But
no, he was a sober slush in the show business, which is he didn't drink that much.
Yeah.
He apparently there's great stories told that he'd invite the people to be over to his house for a party. He wanted to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and play golf, so he'd go to bed at 10 o'clock, and about 10:30 he'd ring the local police and say, the Martins are having a house party. It's just crazy, the noise here. You got to shut this down. And the police would arrive at 11 o'clock and tell everyone to shut the hell up. And he was asleep in bed.
Amazing.
Extraordinary guy. A very, very funny guy.
And he stood up to the mob as well, didn't he? Dean Martin.
They did. Like when the Rat Pack were playing Las Vegas. Okay, didn't quite stand up to the mob there. The rest of it, you just dealt with the mob, etc. But at that stage, it was a different thing. But what they did is they stood up for against racism. Yeah. So in the end, which they insisted the likes like when they were playing with Count Basie, Sammy Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, that this was no more staying in Deptford hotels, no more staying across town. That they were to stay, eat, and stay in the same hotels. And Sinatra made it very, very clear to the hotel owners, that's it. If not, I pull, I go, and I take Dean and everyone else with me. And the Colour Bar finished in 61, 62 in Los Angeles. Actually, before that, in Las Vegas very, very quickly.
Tony Bennett, Italian, obviously.
Benedito or something like that. Yeah.
Would he be top tier now? Would you rate him really up there?
Oh, absolutely. Oh no, extraordinary. I mean, it is going to be up the way at the top. He just, I mean, a technical singer, but his musicality, his range was just extraordinary. There's actually a great thing. One of the nights there about 2-3 weeks ago, found myself staying up way too late on YouTube and finding the other things you find these kids who've discovered singers for the first time.
Oh yeah.
They're playing. It is, some of the stuff is extraordinarily funny. Lately was side-splittingly funny. But just watching a couple of these guys who discovered Tony Bennett and Sinatra and a few others like that, again, which they couldn't get over, that people can just open their mouth and the voice comes out that strong and hit those notes.
Oh, they were impressed, were they? They weren't.
Oh, they were. These guys are like just. I mean, there was 2 or 3 of them which I've actually followed since, and they're just stunned. I mean, again, which is, it's not what they expect, and there's no tricks, and there's no messing, and they realize these guys are singing it live.
Yeah, they're
belting it out there. Yeah.
I do, Derek. I could literally talk to you all night. How's your mum, by the way?
Oh, she's flying fine.
Great. Hello to Derek's mum and my own mother, because can't sort out the Skype. We've run out of time, Derek. Your columnist on the site today, and a very brilliant piece as well today.
No problem. But tell you what I actually might do is might actually just do a few less serious pieces over the next couple of weeks and kind of just talk about stuff like that.
That's the plan. Okay, that sounds like a good plan. Derek.
No problem. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.